Now let's talk about transfer of training. Positive transfer of training is when a mastery of one task aids in the mastery of a second task. So when you know how to do one thing, it helps when you try to learn to do something else. For instance, most of us probably know how to ride a bicycle. And so if you wanted to ride a motorcycle but you never had before, well, your memory and knowing how to ride the bicycle will help you with knowing how to ride a motorcycle. Another example is if you've ever skateboarded, it's probably going to be easier for you to surf as it would be for someone to try to surf that had never skateboarded in the first place. A negative transfer of training is when mastery of one task conflicts with the mastery of a second task. An example of negative transfer of training would be driving in reverse, backing your car up. That's one task, but being able to back up a truck with a trailer is a completely different task. And so it may interfere with your ability. If you've only learned how to back up a car, it may be difficult or even more difficult for you to learn how to back up a truck with a trailer. Now, repression and suppression of memory. The common theme here is that repression is unconscious and suppression is conscious. Repression is when we unconsciously push painful, embarrassing, or threatening memories out of our awareness. I have a friend who got in a serious car accident, and this friend cannot she was awake the entire time. She was awake during when they had to get the jaws of life out to get her out of the vehicle. They had to fly her to the hospital. She remembers none of this because this memory was so painful that she has unconsciously pushed this out of her awareness. Now, suppression, on the other hand, is when we consciously make a decision to put something painful or threatening out of mind to keep it from entering our awareness. So this is when we do something that maybe we're not proud of, or maybe we didn't mean to do, or whatever. We don't want to remember it anymore, and so we just try to forget about it. We try to sweep it under the rug, so to speak. That's suppression. So it's a conscious effort to forget, whereas repression is not conscious. And last but not least, we have, well, there's actually two more slides, but we have retrograde amnesia. So amnesia is when there is a traumatic event or some kind of head injury that impairs us from remembering. Retrograde amnesia involves forgetting events that occurred before an injury or trauma. So some examples out of movies would be maybe Wolverine. He had a traumatic event and now he can no longer remember his past. Another example would be the Bourne movies, the Jason Bourne movies with Matt Damon, the Bourne Ultimatum, the Bourne Supremacy, all of those movies. He had a traumatic event and now he can no longer remember what happened prior to the movies. Okay, he's trying to uncover all of his past. Those are examples of retrograde amnesia. On the other hand, anterograde amnesia is when we are when we forget events that follow an injury. So we can remember our past, but we've had an injury and now we can no longer form new memories. An example of this would be like Adam Sandler's movie 50 First Dates. Drew Barrymore is his girlfriend, but she had an accident and she can no longer remember anything after that accident. Okay? And consolidation, the third bullet here, is the process by which relatively permanent memories are formed in the brain. So imagine that we've poured a slab of concrete and we write our name. Okay? It takes time for that to set and stay there permanently. If we wrote our name and then someone came over with like a putty knife and smoothed that back out, then that name never formed, so that memory never formed. But if time is given and that memory sets, then we're able to remember. And last we have flashbulb memories. These are memories that are created during times of personal tragedy, accident, or other emotionally significant events. An example for some folks may be September 11th, 2001. I was in math class. I remember it very well when the terrorist attack happened, and people, over the intercom came over and said, that the World Trade Centers had just been attacked. I remember that well. I remember who I was sitting behind. I remember where I was sitting in class. I remember what class it was and the teacher. And maybe an example for you, if you're a little bit too young to remember that, would be those tornadoes in April 27th of 2011, or some other event. Another event may be when there's a passing of a family member, or when there is a birth of a new family member. So flashbulb memories are going to be memories that are very, very vivid memories that we can remember. They can be both positive and negative, and we have great confidence in them, even though they could be inaccurate. Not necessarily that they will be, though.